3, 4.
Hey, thanks for doing this project with me, Cheryl. We're here in the
Yeah.
studio with
Hey.
Sheryl Bailey. And
Hey, everybody.
we just recorded a lesson series for DC Music School, 5 volumes, and she did everything like 3-4 hours. She's been doing this for a long time, so she's a real pro. And we're going to talk about some history. Actually, I'm very interested in music history. Can you talk about how it was learning jazz when you were learning jazz?
Wow. Well, when I was in high school, which was in the dark ages of the 80s when we used paper and pencil, I got introduced to, I heard Bird and I heard Sonny Rollins and I heard Wes Montgomery. So those were my entry points into listening to jazz. I grew up with a musical theater family, so I knew all the songs, all the standards that people played. And I was very intrigued by it. You know, I didn't understand what I was hearing, and so that's what drew me in. I was very curious about it.
And of course, you went to Berkeley. You teach there now. You're associate chair. But when you were there, did you also actually go to jam sessions or play with other kids?
Sure, yeah, we played all the time, and I played tons of guitar duos because when I was there, was 1,200 guitarists.
Ooh.
So you could always find somebody before class, and hey, let's play duo. So I love playing duo, and I feel very comfortable doing because that's what we did all the time. It's just play duo.
And in those days, I guess, when did the real book come out? Was
Well, the real book was definitely around then. My understanding of this history of the real book is that it came from Berkeley, and they were just, you know, lead sheets and they became a book. And that's also my theory about why some things are in the quote unquote wrong key. It seems to be about a minor third off, like Autumn Leaves or Green Dolphin Street. My theory is that they were actually probably alto saxophone charts, and somebody thought they were concert.
Oh.
That's my theory about it, but because there are a couple of them, and there seem to always be a minor third away. But anyway, that's that I know the legend of the real book.
But like when in those days, were you using or how were you learning tunes? Were people showing you the chords? Or?
Yeah, it was a mixture of both. I mean, obviously, I listened to that music. I transcribed a lot of it myself. You know, the actual tunes. And yeah, just playing a lot. And yeah, sometimes you grab a real book just to look at a tune. And I mean, I think can be a good source. It shouldn't be your only source. But I think for sure I'd just grab a real book tune just for quick reference.
And in those days when you were learning versus how it is today, how much has the education changed or even the culture around it? Because in your days, at least maybe you could hear jazz more regular than you can nowadays. How do you feel about that?
Well, I wish that you could hear jazz everywhere you went all the time. I don't know. I mean, there's still things that are fundamentals about music that you have to learn, no matter what time or with the technology. I mean, my feeling is, you know, there's a whole thing about, oh, well, technology changes, but if what's behind the technology is not happening, it's not happening. So, you know, your skills of your time and, you know, playing in tune and having rhythmic frame, all that stuff, it's as old as the hills, and if it's still moving forward, always going to be important.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel there's a huge, huge bebop influence in your playing. But I guess in the 80s, maybe it was more like fusion and stuff. And maybe in
Yeah.
the 2000s, it was like a big Pat Metheny thing.
Yeah.
Seems to be like a comeback now. So how do you, like, as a teacher, first of all, and also growing up in that era, how has that affected you? What do you think? What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I mean, I think the tradition's always very important if you're going to study it. I mean, for me, actually, I think during that time I was really into Mike Stern. I was really into John Abercrombie and Ralph Towner harmonically, even though my early stuff that I studied was like Charlie Christian and all those. So, but there's always, I feel like the jazz line, you can go back to Coleman Hawkins. There's still something that's always there that we need to know. And when I moved to New York City, I felt like I went further back into the tradition and kind of filled in those gaps that I didn't have. And, in teaching harmony and a lot of students, I always just feel like going back is going to help you move forward. It's going to fill in those holes in your understanding about the music and phrasing, and it's just going to make you a deeper musician. So you might love, current players today, like Kurt Rosenwinkel and stuff, or even Schofield saying, well, I transcribed tons of Sonny Rollins. I mean, I think you always have to go back to those sources because it is a lineage. It's not like there's a cut in time and all of a sudden something changed. The changes are based on what it's moving forward from a long line.
In the lesson series, which you guys should buy, please support us, support artists. You talked about the importance of the environment, the culture, the lineage, the history. And when you get, as you said, like jazz, especially bebop, is a language, how do you find the balance in your mind as a teacher? For example, if you go to school, they'll teach you the scales, avoid notes, and all that stuff. But when you check out the music, they play a lot of quote unquote the avoid notes. Sometimes people don't even play the change; they'll play blues, for example, all that stuff. How do you reconcile all this?
I don't think there's anything to reconcile. I mean, I think if you're developing depth when you come to there. So all roads lead to Rome in some way. And again, in terms of foundational principles, we do need to understand voice leading, and we do need to understand these things. But then there's theory and there's practice. And I don't mean that like practice I mean like in the real world, right?
Yeah.
There's always stuff that we learn theoretically, but in the real world, it's not, we're human, it's a human world. So things adapt. But the more that you just can be curious about any of these things is, I think, the key.
How much then was it important for you, like, nothing to regard, I understand where you're coming from, like, all right, from the community, meeting the players, and just listening and transcribing, and then after the analytical side, so to speak, where's that balance in your mind? I don't know if you can answer that.
Wow. Well, I guess, like I've said many times, when I'm playing, the lights are on, but nobody's home. I just want to immerse myself in the music. All that stuff is going on there, and they don't cancel each other out. So understanding something in depth intellectually does not cancel out the spirit and soul of it. Because the deeper that you get in there, they all come to the same place as well. So I think in your practice, in your study, you want to get these things internalized, and the deeper you're in it, when you go to play music, you can just let go and go into that. Especially improvising, you're letting go into this void. We don't know what's going to happen. But the more, as my mentor, Dr. Kim Perlak, says, luck favors the prepared.
And then how do you prepare that? For example, earlier you were saying, okay, in the lesson series, if you had a C minor, you hear like a melody.
Yeah.
So how do you even, and I can't think, it was Barney Kessel said you have to play what you hear. But how do you hear something worth playing?
Oh, that's always fascinating to me. Like, in some ways, some players, I'm not so interested. I mean, it's not a mystery to me what they play, but how did they choose those notes? Like, what do they hear? What sounds like a good melody? I mean, in the end, we all have this melody going on inside of us. I think we've heard music, since we came out of the womb. So we have a whole lifetime of just hearing melodies. So then it's sort of like, if I hear a chord, if somebody plays a chord and I'm going to hear, wah, ba-da-doo-da, whatever, I want to try to make the communication from that to here as fast as possible. So.
But how did you hear that?
I mean, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. See, you heard it. I think we need to listen to a lot of music, all kinds of music, and without judgment. You know what I mean? I mean, I think there's a thing like I play rock, or and people see me on the street and they go, "What do you play?" I say, "Good music," because I really believe strongly all music is beautiful. There's good music and there are bad musicians.
Because if I can be honest, I mean, for myself, I had this problem in the beginning where, admittedly, I wanted to learn to play jazz, but I actually didn't really listen to jazz. But I knew all my scales on my and I could play any song.
Sure.
I could play quote unquote the changes, but somehow I knew, and some jazz musicians did make the right correct assessment that I was just playing like the changes, but like there was no language or anything, and I can hear that. So I guess listening and the community.
Yeah, and also, you know what? It's free singing. You don't have to have a great voice. My pitch is not great because I don't, but I can sing everything I play. So even one summer, I would tell you, when I was just starting, I had this Bird record. I could sing. I could sing the bass solos, the drum breaks, everything. And I actually feel, even though I wasn't working it out on my instrument, and I didn't necessarily do that, I felt in this short period of time, I got deep inside the language of the music. Just by singing, you can do that. Like, you don't have to worry about, like, where is it on my instrument? You just get those sounds and sound. Again, that was the thing when I heard Charlie, I said, that sounds so wild. It was like hearing Chinese or Japanese or whatever, some kind of language that I didn't know, or Spanish. Or I don't know how to speak Spanish. Wow, I don't understand it. What is it? But as I listened to it and sang along with it, then I was like, oh, I got that. So when you play something, or, I play something, we can have that conversation back and forth. It's a common language that we're speaking or hearing. They say, like, for instance, when you're trying to learn a second language, or you speak several languages, right?
Yeah.
If you can get to that place where you can dream in that language, then you've really internalized, or you can tell jokes or get jokes in your second or third, or in your case, fourth, fifth language, then you're at a point of mastery. So and that just takes time.
Then I have a question for you, because you're also involved internationally, but sometimes I get questions from people who come from places where there's absolutely no one to play with, no one to go listen to. What advice do you have for them?
Wow. Keep the faith and get out of there.
Go to Berkeley, study with her, go to New York, seek her out. Well, that was very fascinating. Thank you so much for doing this, Sheryl.
Yeah, thank you.
And please support us. Thank you. Check out our True Fire, everything, social media. I'll post all the links. See you.
Peace out.